The noise hits you first. Cameras clicking, reporters shouting, lights flooding a face the public once barely noticed. Now she's the center of a storm she never imagined stepping into. Erika Kirk stands in front of a crowd demanding answers, but the question cutting through everything is the same one echoing across the country tonight. Did she receive a $50 million life insurance payout after Charlie Kirk's death? And why is Candace Owens saying she has the documents to prove it? If you're watching this right now, make sure you subscribe to this channel because the details you're about to hear will have updates, new witnesses, and developing information that you don't want to miss. This story doesn't start with money. It starts with loss. A powerful conservative figure dies suddenly, leaving behind a movement, a legacy, and a world full of unanswered questions. But the moment Candace Owens steps forward with allegations of a massive life insurance benefit, grief turns into suspicion. A number so large, $50 million, demands explanation, and the silence surrounding it only adds more weight. You watch Erika's face closely in the footage. Her jaw tightens, her expression freezes. She repeats her statement word for word, as if rehearsed. But the room no longer reacts to her composure. It reacts to the possibility that the story the public was told is incomplete. And when truth feels incomplete, people begin searching for the pieces that were left out. Stay with this investigation and subscribe if you haven't already, because we're only getting started. The deeper we continue, the more the timeline feels off. Charlie Kirk wasn't a man without enemies. He wasn't a quiet activist. He was a national figure influencing millions of minds, shaping debates, guiding political youth culture, and making decisions that carried both praise and backlash. When someone like that does, the impact hits hard. But what happens after, the paperwork, the finances, the disclosures, that's where the story gains tension. Candace Owens releases her claims in a direct, sharply worded message. She says she has documents showing that Charlie's life insurance policy was updated shortly before his death. She suggests that the beneficiary list changed, and then she names Erika. It creates a shockwave through political circles, and instantly the narrative shifts. Erika isn't only a widow, she becomes a person of interest in a financial case she never publicly acknowledged. And right now, if you want the full truth as it unfolds in real time, hit the subscribe button so you're here for every chapter of this ongoing investigation. People who worked with Charlie begin speaking. Their voices crack with tension as they reveal what they saw behind closed doors. They describe a man under increasing pressure. Long hours, intense demands, confidential meetings that carried consequences, and disagreements inside the organization he built. Some say he looked exhausted. Others say he felt betrayed. A few insist something was wrong long before the tragedy, but no one dared address it openly. The more you listen, the more you notice how the pieces begin forming a pattern that no one wants to acknowledge publicly. Charlie had influence. He had power. He had critics. And he had a life insurance policy worth more than some companies generate in their entire lifetime. Experts explain how unusual that number is. $50 million isn't the type of policy you casually sign up for. It requires justification, assessments, agreements, and financial documentation. It's often tied to business obligations, debts, protections, succession planning, and the timing matters. Why was it updated? Why was it so large? And more importantly, why didn't anyone mention it until Candace Owens forced it into the open? And while these conversations grow, Erika is left standing alone in clip after clip, trying to defend her husband's memory while carrying the weight of a question she never answered. Why was she the beneficiary? If you're following this story closely, subscribe now so you don't miss the next stages of this unfolding case. As the investigation stretches, tensions rise around the organization Charlie led. Board members avoid cameras, donors demand transparency, financial analysts warn that the silence around the policy isn't just unusual, it's alarming. They suggest that internal financial pressure may have played a bigger role in Charlie's final months than anyone acknowledged. The more evidence that surfaces, the more Erika's interviews become a battleground. People break down her facial expressions, her tone, her timing. Supporters say she's grieving and deserves space. Critics ask why her answers shift slightly every time someone uncovers a new detail. And observers wonder out loud whether she knew more than she ever wanted to reveal. And through it all, Candace Owens continues releasing statements, each one sharper, each one more confident, each one hinting that this case is far from settled. Keep watching. Make sure you subscribe so you're here when the next wave of information drops. More insiders step forward. Some say Charlie mentioned concerns about financial disputes. Others insist he feared the direction the organization was headed. A few admit they saw tension between him and key figures, tension so obvious they questioned whether something irreversible would eventually happen. And with every new account, Erika becomes a more complicated figure. You see her trying to protect her husband's reputation while facing accusations that she benefited from circumstances she can't control. It's a position no one wants to imagine themselves in, but the numbers don't disappear. $50 million is a fact, and facts carry consequences. If you're invested in this case, and you should be, subscribe right now because the next episodes will uncover details that challenge everything you've heard so far. This is no longer just about grief. It's about money, influence, pressure, and the uncomfortable truth that institutions often react differently when one of their leaders is gone. The public mourns, insiders protect themselves, documents surface, people shift positions, and widows become central figures in stories that were never meant for daylight. And until every answer is examined, every witness heard, and every document reviewed, this investigation continues. And so does Erika's fight to defend herself. You begin to notice something unsettling in the footage collected over the months. Every time Erika speaks publicly, she chooses her words carefully, but her eyes tell a different story. There's a strain there, a tension you can't ignore, as if she knows that the next headline could redefine her entire life. And when the allegations about the $50 million life insurance payout spread across social media, you watch her entire posture shift. This isn't the kind of attention she wanted, yet it's the kind she can't escape. If you're just joining this investigation, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now so you don't miss what comes next. The details ahead will shape the direction of this story for months. Inside Charlie's organization, the atmosphere changes dramatically. Staff members who once praised Erika begin refusing to comment. Former employees suddenly lawyer up. Individuals who used to speak freely about internal operations now decline interviews with the simple phrase, "I can't talk about that." That level of hesitation doesn't come out of nowhere. It usually means something deeper is unfolding, something that places careers, reputations, and maybe even legal exposure at risk. Then come the leaked emails. Pale, grainy screenshots showing correspondence between several high-ranking members discussing financial restructuring, donor pressure, and concerns about organizational sustainability. You see Charlie's name, you see others you don't recognize. And in the middle of the thread, highlighted in yellow by whoever leaked it, is a single sentence referencing the life insurance policy as a stabilizing fallback. A fallback. Before he died. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should hit the subscribe button right now because documents like these never surface without a bigger story behind them. Questions pour in. Was Charlie's policy designed to protect the organization? Was it meant for Erika alone? Who authorized it? Who pushed for the update? And why does the timing align so uncomfortably close to the period when insiders described him as overwhelmed and exhausted? Candace Owens releases another video. Her tone is firmer this time, her confidence unwavering. She states that she has seen multiple versions of the policy. She claims someone inside Turning Point USA is feeding her information directly. She says she has no intention of stopping, no matter who gets upset or who tries to silence her. And when she looks into the camera and says Erika owes the public an explanation, the internet erupts. Comment sections fill with debates. Some defend Erika fiercely, saying this is an invasion of privacy. Others argue she's avoiding accountability. But the loudest voices aren't the supporters or the critics. It's the people calling for transparency. People who believe a figure this influential shouldn't leave behind financial mysteries. And every time the story trends, more documents appear, more screenshots, more leaks. Stay here, subscribe so you don't miss the next drops, because this is only escalating. Next, you hear from a former financial auditor familiar with large nonprofit operations. He explains that a $50 million policy isn't merely unusual, It's extraordinary. He says organizations typically use policies like this only when facing heavy obligations or when anticipating long-term instability. His voice doesn't accuse Erika directly, but his explanation forces viewers to confront the possibility that Charlie's life was intertwined with financial structures far more complex than the public ever realized. And then another layer appears: Charlie's medical records, confidentially leaked, selective, minimal, but enough for experts to question whether he would have even passed the evaluations required for a policy of that size. That raises the most uncomfortable questions so far. Was the insurer fully aware of his health? And if not, who withheld information? Each document introduces new tension, new contradictions, and a new wave of pressure on Erika, who remains silent through every accusation. You're going to want to subscribe right now because the information that's coming next can change everything you think you know. Now attention shifts to Erika's financial behavior after Charlie's passing. Bank filings, property movements, advisory meetings. Critics track down timelines and highlight transactions they claim look suspicious. Supporters argue the transactions are normal, part of estate management. But the public doesn't see normal. They see patterns, they see amounts, and they begin forming conclusions before evidence is fully verified. Meanwhile, anonymous insiders hint that Erika and Charlie's marriage wasn't as smooth as presented. They reference arguments overheard in hallways, meetings cut short, late-night calls, emotional strain. Nothing extreme, nothing dramatic, but enough to make people ask if the marriage was under pressure long before Charlie's final months. The narrative widens. The story isn't only about Erika or Charlie or Candace Owens. It's about a system of money, power, and influence that rarely operates in full daylight. It's about the choices leaders make behind closed doors and the consequences that crashing through those doors when something goes horribly wrong. And through all of this, one fact remains: the life insurance policy exists, and $50 million is a number that demands scrutiny. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing the next waves of this investigation. Hit subscribe now because more witnesses are coming forward. As the story progresses, an unexpected figure emerges: a former legal advisor from a firm associated with Turning Point USA's financial structuring. They don't reveal their name, they don't show their face, but their voice, altered for protection, delivers a statement that freezes investigators. There were conversations about the policy. Serious conversations. And it wasn't just about financial planning, it was about contingency planning. Contingency, a word that implies preparation for a future no one admitted publicly. You watch as Erika's photos, once peaceful and private, now accompany every new report. She becomes the image of a controversy she may or may not have invited. Her silence frustrates critics, her composure frustrates supporters, and her unwillingness to confront the $50 million question directly becomes the centerpiece of every debate. Every story has pressure points. The pressure here keeps tightening. And if you want to see what breaks next, subscribe right now because the next chapter will expose connections, rivalries, and decisions that never should have seen the light of day. Yet, the more investigators push forward, the more the landscape starts shifting in ways no one can ignore. A series of quiet inquiries begins moving through insurance regulators, each one triggered by someone who clearly understands what to look for. You see their requests in heavily redacted memos: contract dates, beneficiary signatures, corporate ties, internal authorizations. None of it is dramatic on the surface, but each request has a purpose: to pinpoint who knew what and when. And as these documents circulate behind the scenes, a new source contacts journalists with a claim that forces the investigation into unfamiliar territory. They say the policy wasn't only designed around Charlie's death. They insist it was linked to organizational continuity, language normally used when a leadership loss could impact donor confidence or long-term strategy. It places the entire arrangement inside a context no one publicly acknowledged. The source doesn't offer proof yet, but their wording hints at layers the public hasn't even begun to consider. If you want updates the moment they unfold, it helps to subscribe and stay close to this unfolding investigation. Footage emerges next from a private retreat held months before Charlie passed. The event was closed-door, limited to executives, advisors, and select partners. Cameras weren't allowed, but someone recorded audio from their phone while sitting in the back. The sound is muffled, but you catch enough to identify voices discussing financial uncertainties. A brief mention of planning ahead. A stray comment about ensuring stability. People in the room laugh nervously at one point, but the tension in the speaker's tone is unmistakable. And then something stranger. Erika's voice enters the conversation. Calm, controlled, focused. She asks a question about contingency measures and whether the organization has structures in place for leadership transitions. Her tone is respectful, but direct. It's clear she wasn't just present, she was engaged. Investigators replay the clip repeatedly. Some argue she was simply asking about corporate planning. Others say she was far too informed about internal financial matters for someone described as uninvolved. The divide grows wider. From here, the story edges closer to areas that make even seasoned analysts uneasy. A former insurance consultant, speaking anonymously, reviews leaked paperwork and points out that the policy was structured in a way usually reserved for business entities, not individuals. They stop their analysis midway, almost as if they regret saying too much. He pauses before concluding that someone with financial knowledge had to be involved in shaping the agreement. Someone who understood both asset protection and long-term organizational risks. The room gets quieter every time experts discuss these points on camera. People begin to understand that Charlie's death left behind more than grief and unanswered questions. It left behind a complicated financial structure that still hasn't been fully explained. Another subtle reminder appears as investigators continue. If you want to stay informed as these layers unfold, subscribing helps you follow each chapter as it drops. Meanwhile, new tension emerges inside circles once loyal to Erika. A former friend who attended gatherings at the Kirk home claims that Erika held detailed conversations about the organization's finances long before Charlie's final months. According to them, she wasn't a passive observer. She had opinions, concerns, and strong views about the direction of the brand. None of this is inherently suspicious. Many spouses take interest in their partner's work. But when placed against the backdrop of a $50 million policy, every small detail becomes part of a larger puzzle. And as more people come forward, the puzzle pieces take shapes no one anticipated. A policy revision date, an unusual meeting, a retreat where leaders whispered about future uncertainty, a widow asking pointed financial questions, documents that had no reason to exist unless someone expected significant disruption. You sense the pressure weighing on everyone involved. The organization avoids interviews. Advisors deny having access to key files. Attorneys issue statements that feel rehearsed. Erika's silence becomes a story of its own, one that grows heavier with each unanswered allegation. Then comes the most challenging revelation so far. A source inside the insurer claims that the approval process was fast-tracked. They say they don't understand how a policy of that size moved through underwriting that quickly. They suggest someone pushed it forward, and while they avoid assigning blame, their language raises questions that investigators can't ignore. This is where the investigation begins entering deeper waters, where each discovery points to people who once believed they were protected by secrecy. It's clear now that this story won't resolve quietly. Too many voices, too many documents, too many contradictions. If you want to follow the rest as it unfolds, staying subscribed ensures you won't miss the developments that follow these early findings. And as this chapter continues, you can feel investigators preparing for the next set of questions, the ones that reach beyond the insurance policy and into personal choices, organizational disputes, and the uncomfortable moments leading up to Charlie Kirk's final days.